I live by a simple philosophy: live and let others live. To me, life is just about working hard, loving my family, and enjoying the quiet moments. The single-story house on the edge of Pine Hollow, Texas, the Harper family's three-generation legacy, is the place I'm proud to call home. It sits on a wide plot of land, surrounded by ancient oak trees and an old wooden fence, bearing the enduring mark of my ancestors. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest video. Independence Day arrived with blazing sunshine and a lively buzz in my backyard. The BBQ I'd planned kicked off at noon, with Willie Nelson's country tunes blaring from a Bluetooth speaker on the wooden table. The smell of Mia's BBQ sauced meat, my wife's specialty, filled the air, mingling with the gentle white smoke drifting from the grill. Liam, our 10-year-old son, ran around the yard with his basketball team buddies, cheering every time someone sank a shot. Over 20 people, friends, neighbors, and a few Pine Hollow acquaintances, were scattered across folding chairs, holding cold beer cans or plates of Mia's homemade cookies. To me, this was the dream. A day full of laughter, warmth, and an unmatched sense of connection. But that peaceful moment didn't last long. From across the road where Oak Ridge Estates begins, a figure appeared, a woman with a stiff gait and a cold stare, like the world owed her something. Margaret Reynolds, 55, the HOA president of Oak Ridge Estates, was a familiar name in Pine Hollow, though no one wanted to cross her path. Once a bank manager commanding a team of employees, Maggie retired early and turned Oak Ridge into her personal empire. To her, everything had to be perfect, from lawns trimmed to exactly 3 inches, to trash bins hidden by 6 a.m. Her face, with its pursed lips and meticulously styled blonde hair, radiated overbearing authority, like a self-appointed queen no one dared challenge. Maggie didn't march straight to my yard. She stood at the edge of Oak Ridge, a few dozen meters from my wooden fence, phone in hand, staring like a hawk. The music, laughter, and grill smoke seemed to be a thorn in her side. Less than 10 minutes later, a police car rolled up to my house. No flashing lights, but a short siren blip made everyone in the yard turn. I set down the tongs I was using to flip ribs and frowned. "Who called the cops?" I muttered to Mia as she brought out another tray of cookies. Deputy Sam Carter, a local officer with an easy smile and a lanky frame, stepped out of the car. He tipped his hat and greeted me like an old friend. "Hey, looks like a fun party," Sam said, glancing at the crowd. "Got a complaint about noise and smoke from here. Any guesses who's behind it?" I followed his pointing hand toward Maggie, now closer, standing at the boundary between Oak Ridge and my land, arms crossed with a smug look. I smirked and shook my head. "Probably her. But I'm not in her HOA, Sam. What's the problem?" Sam nodded, pulled a noise meter from his pocket, and checked around the yard. After a few minutes, he shrugged. "Below the limit. And the smoke? Come on. It's a BBQ. Who doesn't fire up a grill?" He laughed, clapped my shoulder. "Everything's fine. I'm outta here. Enjoy the party." Sam headed back to his car, not without a pointed glance at Maggie before driving off. I watched him go, tongs still in hand, a restless feeling creeping in. I didn't know Maggie, but her glare, like I'd committed some crime, rubbed me the wrong way. Maggie didn't leave right away. She lingered for a few minutes, scanning my yard as if memorizing every detail. The speaker playing music, the smoking grill, the kids running around. Then she turned on her heel and marched back to Oak Ridge with that stiff stride, but I could sense the tension in every step. I shrugged, returned to the grill, and said to Mia, "Guess she doesn't like the smell of ribs. Oh well, let's keep enjoying ourselves." Mia smiled, resting a hand on my shoulder. "Don't mind her, it's probably just a one-time thing." But I was wrong. Maggie wasn't the type to let go easily. To her, my BBQ wasn't just noise or smoke. It was a blatant challenge to the authority she'd granted herself over Oak Ridge Estates. As she disappeared behind the trees across the road, I had no idea her appearance was just the start of a fight I never wanted. After Independence Day, I thought it was over. Deputy Sam left with a grin, the BBQ rolled on with laughter and cheers, and Maggie Reynolds vanished behind Oak Ridge's trees. I figured she was just a cranky neighbor who'd blow off steam once and be done. I shrugged, cleaned up the yard with Mia and Liam, and slipped back into routine, fixing cars in the garage, sipping coffee on the porch, listening to Liam's basketball bounce steadily. But I didn't realize that for Maggie, Sam's visit wasn't the end. It was the opening salvo of a war. A few days later, while I was checking a truck in the garage, Liam ran in, holding a plain white envelope. "Dad, this was in the mailbox, but there's no stamp," he said, eyes wide with curiosity. I wiped my hands on a rag, frowning at the Oak Ridge Estates HOA logo in the corner. I tore it open and skimmed the stiff text. Dear Sir, we, the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association, request that you immediately cease disruptive activities, such as noisy gatherings and outdoor grilling. These actions harm our community's property values and peace. We expect your cooperation to avoid further measures. At the bottom was Margaret Reynolds' signature, HOA President. I burst out laughing, tossing the letter onto the workbench. Who do they think they are, bossing me around like this? I said to Mia as she stepped into the garage with a plate of cookies. She read it, wrinkling her nose. We're not even in their neighborhood. What's she basing this on? I shrugged, folded the paper, and stuffed it in a drawer. Probably just a scare tactic. I'm not breaking any laws. But deep down, I felt a twinge, not from the letter, but from how Maggie glared at me like an enemy over one party. But Maggie didn't stop. That weekend, while I was mowing the front yard, I heard hammering from the road. Looking up, I saw two men in work uniforms, nailing a wooden sign near my fence, just meters from Oak Ridge Estates. It read, "Quiet Zone. No noise after 8 p.m. I walked over, mower still in hand, staring in disbelief. Who told you to put this up? I asked. One guy, face red from the sun, mumbled, Oak Ridge HOA ordered it. They said this area needs noise restrictions. I smirked. This is my land, not theirs. Take it down before I call the cops for trespassing. The men exchanged looks, clearly not wanting trouble, then quickly dismantled the sign and bolted. But I knew who was behind it. From a distance I saw Maggie on her porch, phone in hand. Her icy eyes locked on me. She didn't say a word, but that stare spoke volumes. She wasn't done with me. I shook my head, went back to mowing, but my sense of peace started to waver. Maggie's campaign only ramped up. Early the next week, checking the mailbox, I found another letter, this time on official Oak Ridge Estates letterhead. The content was even wilder. We've received multiple complaints about outdoor speakers and grill smoke from your property. To preserve the area's beauty and harmony, we suggest you stop using public speakers and move your grill indoors. This is for the common good. I read it, laughed so hard. Mia ran out to see. She wants me to hide my grill in the kitchen because of the smoke. I said, handing her the letter. What beauty, when we're not even part of them. But Maggie didn't just send letters. One afternoon, while I was fixing a car, I heard footsteps and whispers near the fence. Looking out, I saw 3 people, 2 men and a woman, all in matching polo uniforms, standing at my property line, snapping photos and filming my backyard with their phones. I walked over, voice calm but firm. What are you doing? The woman, apparently the leader, replied with forced confidence. We're the Oak Ridge Estates Patrol, checking for violations affecting the area. I crossed my arms, gave a dry laugh. This is private property, not your playground. Get out before I call Deputy Sam. The patrol slinked off quietly, but I knew it wasn't over. Back inside I told Mia. She's lost it, Mia said, shaking her head. Does she think she's the sheriff of Pine Hollow or something? I nodded. But inside my irritation turned to resolve. I didn't want to fight, but if Maggie was going to play this game, I wouldn't sit still. After a barrage of warning letters, the quiet zone sign, and Maggie Reynolds' patrol team, I realized staying quiet wasn't the way to handle this woman. My live and let live philosophy was being tested, and though I didn't like trouble, I wasn't about to let someone trample my life without pushing back. Maggie wanted war. Fine, but I'd fight on my terms, not with letters or rules, but with the joy and laughter she clearly couldn't stand. The idea hit me one evening, as I sat on the porch with Mia, sipping coffee and watching Liam shoot hoops under the yard lights. If she hated the Independence Day party that much, I said, a grin tugging at my lips, I'll give her a party she can't ignore. Mia raised an eyebrow, curious but wary. What do you mean? She asked. I stood, stepped inside and grabbed my phone. Halloween's coming. I'm throwing an outdoor bash. Bigger, louder, and totally legal. She wants quiet. I'll show her how Pine Hollow parties. I got to work right away. I posted in Pine Hollow's Facebook group. Halloween party at my place. Costumes, live music, free food. Whole town's invited. Bring friends if you want. I called a few buddies, like Tommy, an amateur guitarist, and Sarah, a baker from Rusty's Diner, to pitch in. Mia jumped in with enthusiasm, baking pumpkin-shaped cookies, and planning to deck out the backyard with lanterns, fake cobwebs, and a pile of carved jack-o'-lanterns. Liam bounced with excitement, insisting on a superhero costume, and inviting his basketball team. Within days, word spread through Pine Hollow, and I knew this wasn't just a party, it was a statement. Halloween night arrived, and my backyard turned into a full-blown festival. Over 50 people showed up. Friends, neighbors, even strangers from town, in costumes ranging from witches to superheroes. Tommy stood on a makeshift stage of wooden crates, strumming his guitar and singing country rock blends, while outdoor speakers blasted the sound just loud enough to fill the yard, but stay under the town's noise limit. Mia set up a long table piled with cookies, candy, and grilled meat, while I manned the grill, flipping ribs with a satisfied grin. Liam and his friends raced around, shrieking every time a pumpkin lantern lit up. Grill smoke wafted up, mixing with the scent of hay and the crisp autumn air. Predictably, Maggie Reynolds reacted fast. Less than an hour in, I heard a police siren in the distance. I set down the tongs, shot Mia a "here we go again." "Look," Deputy Sam Carter stepped out of his car, grinning wide as he took in the scene. "Let me guess," Sam said, tipping his hat. "Reynolds called about noise again?" I nodded, arms crossed. "Probably. Check it out, Sam. Everything's under control." Sam grabbed his noise meter, circled the yard, then shrugged. "Still good, like last time, and those pumpkin cookies look tasty." I laughed, handed him one. "Help yourself. You're an honored guest." Sam stuck around a few minutes, chatting and munching, before heading back to his car. From Oak Ridge Estates, Maggie stood on her porch, phone in hand, eyes blazing as Sam drove off without acting. I glanced her way, waved with a taunting smile, then turned back to the grill. "She's not happy about this," Mia whispered, standing beside me. "Good," I replied, "because I'm not happy with her hassling me." The party stretched late, with Tommy singing, kids' laughter, and applause for standout costumes. A couple from Oak Ridge, Dorothy and Frank, an elderly pair near the boundary, watched quietly from afar. They didn't join, but I caught Dorothy smiling at the pumpkin lanterns, and Frank nodding like he approved. I didn't know it then, but this party didn't just rile Maggie. It planted seeds for unexpected allies down the line. When the crowd cleared, I sat on the porch, sipping a beer, and staring at the now quiet yard. I knew Maggie wouldn't quit. She was too proud to back off. But this time, I was ready. After the epic Halloween bash, I felt a spark of triumph. Maggie Reynolds could call the cops all she wanted, but Deputy Sam proved I wasn't breaking any rules. My backyard went quiet again, just the wind rustling the oaks and Liam's basketball thumping out front. I figured Maggie might get bored and give up. Nobody stays mad over a party forever. Right, but I'd underestimated her stubbornness. To Maggie, every gathering I hosted wasn't just noise or smoke. It was a slap to the power she'd crowned herself with at Oak Ridge Estates, and she was willing to play dirty to regain the upper hand. It started a few days after Halloween. I was fixing a car in the garage when I heard an odd engine sound near the fence. Stepping outside, I saw a guy in a dark jacket standing at my property line, aiming a small camcorder at my backyard. I frowned, wiped my hands on a rag, and walked over. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I asked, voice steady but firm. The guy flinched, turning with a flustered look. Just checking the area," he stammered, then hustled back toward Oak Ridge before I could press him. I stood there, watching him go, unease rising. This wasn't the HOA patrol from before. This was something shadier. The next day, another letter from Oak Ridge Estates arrived, but this one was different. It read, "We have evidence of unsanitary activities on your property, including toxic grill smoke and litter from gatherings. This violates community standards and may lead to legal consequences. Cease immediately." Attached was a blurry photo of my backyard from Halloween night, clearly shot from a distance, obviously by that camcorder guy. I read it, tossed it on the kitchen table and laughed. Toxic smoke, litter, she's making up worse lies than Liam does about homework, I said to Mia, but Mia didn't laugh. "You think she hired someone to spy?" she asked, voice tense. I nodded, "Definitely, and I'm not letting it slide." Maggie didn't stop there. That weekend I got a call from Pine Hollow's town office. A timid clerk said they'd received a complaint about polluting smoke odors and illegal noise from my place, requesting a sanitation check. I explained I wasn't in Oak Ridge Estates and everything was legal, but the clerk let slip a suspicious detail. The complaint came from multiple names, all tied to one contact number, a number I'd bet was Maggie's. "She's faking complaints," I told Mia after hanging up. "She's not just dirty, she's sloppy." I decided to install security cameras around the house, not out of fear, but to catch proof if Maggie went too far. Help came unexpectedly one afternoon. While I was testing the new cameras, a woman, about 40, with her hair in a high ponytail and a plain t-shirt, walked up to my porch, carrying a warm box of muffins. "Hi, I'm Clara Evans," she said, holding out the box. "I live in Oak Ridge Estates. Heard you're having trouble with Maggie Reynolds." I raised an eyebrow, invited her to the backyard, and sat on folding chairs. You know her? I asked. Clara smirked. Oh yeah, she fined me $50 because my kid drew chalk on the sidewalk. Said it ruined community aesthetics. I've hated her for ages. Clara said she wasn't the only one in Oak Ridge fed up with Maggie. She pulled a stack of photocopied papers from her bag, internal HOA emails she'd gotten from a friend on the board. Maggie's sending fake complaints under other residents' names to harass you, Clara said, pointing to an email that read, use fake names if needed, but make him stop. I skimmed it, anger mixing with surprise. She even hired a private eye to film my yard, I said, recounting the camcorder guy. Clara nodded. That's her style. Maggie thinks she can run all of Pine Hollow, but me and a few others are sick of it. You're not alone. I thanked Clara, kept the papers and muffins. As she left, I sat back on the porch, sipping coffee and thinking. Maggie wasn't just persistent. She was reckless, willing to cross legal lines to break me. But now I had proof, and more importantly, allies. Clara Evans wasn't just a neighbor. She was the first sign this fight wasn't mine alone. Maggie Reynolds' internal emails, directing fake complaints and hiring a private investigator, were clear proof that she wasn't just annoying. She was reckless to the point of stupidity. I took a sip of coffee, watching Liam play with Buddy in the backyard, and felt my anger slowly turn into resolve. Maggie might think she controlled everything from her Oak Ridge Estates kingdom, but I wasn't about to let her keep harassing my family without consequences. I needed a bigger move, not just to defend myself, but to show all of Pine Hollow the true nature of this HOA Karen. The idea sparked while I scrolled through my phone that evening. I wasn't big on social media, but I knew about Reddit, thanks to Tommy, my guitar-playing friend from the Halloween party. You should post it. Tommy had joked once when I told him about Maggie's letters. The internet loves stories about taking down petty tyrants. I opened my laptop, created an account, and started typing. The title I picked was HOA Karen called the cops on my party. Even though I'm not in her HOA, I laid it all out. From the Independence Day BBQ, the letter demanding I hide my grill, the patrol team to the PI and fake complaints. I attached photos from my security cam, the shady guy with the camcorder lurking near my fence, and scanned Maggie's emails from Clara. She thinks she can bully me just because I like BBQ and country music. I wrote, I just want to live in peace, but it seems she can't stand other people's happiness. I hit post, and I didn't expect it to blow up so fast. Within hours, hundreds of likes and comments rolled in. Classic HOA Karen. One wrote, drop more evidence, bury her. Another urged. By morning, the post had hit the front page with over 3,000 likes. I laughed out loud reading comments in the kitchen, calling Mia and Liam over to see. Dad, are you famous now? Liam asked, eyes sparkling. Not yet, but Maggie's about to be famous in a way she won't like. I replied, winking. The buzz didn't stop at Reddit. A reporter from the Pine Hollow Gazette messaged me on Facebook, asking if I'd share the story for the local paper. I said yes, and met her, a young woman named Rachel, at Rusty's Diner. I brought all the evidence, letters, PI photos, Maggie's emails. Rachel scribbled fast, cracking up when I told her about Maggie calling the cops on the Halloween party. This is gold, she said. Pine Hollow's gonna eat this up. The article dropped a few days later with the headline, Local Man Faces Off Against Stubborn HOA President. The town lit up from the coffee shop to the grocery store. HOA Karen became the talk everywhere. The attention spread further. At Rusty's Diner, Sarah, the baker from the Halloween party, added 2 new menu items. The Maggie Melt, a bland sandwich with dry cheese, and Ethan's BBQ burger, a hefty stack of grilled meat and spicy sauce. In your corner, Sarah said when I stopped by. Folks order yours twice as much. I laughed hard, feeling the community's support growing stronger. A local Facebook group buzzed too with posts like Who's With Me? Or Maggie Reynolds thinks she can ban BBQ. The pressure started weighing on Maggie. From her porch in Oak Ridge Estates, I saw lights on later than usual, a sign she was rattled. Clara called with an update. Maggie held an emergency HOA meeting last night. She's furious about the article, says you're ruining Oak Ridge's reputation, but not everyone's on her side anymore. Clara said a few loyalists, like Gary, a chronic brown-noser, still backed her, but others were doubting. They don't like her using HOA funds for a PI. Clara added, things are shaky in there. I sat back on my porch, reading a new Reddit comment. Teach her a lesson, man. I smiled, feeling like the fight had shifted from my backyard to a bigger stage. Maggie might think she held all the cards, but now Pine Hollow and the internet were against her. The heat was rising, and I knew she wouldn't sit still. The Reddit post and Pine Hollow Gazette article had made Maggie Reynolds, the center of attention in Pine Hollow, but not in the way she wanted. I sat on my porch, scrolling through fresh comments, chuckling as someone dubbed her the washed-up HOA queen. I knew she was under fire. Clara reported cracks forming in Oak Ridge Estates ranks, and HOA Karen was now a running joke at Rusty's Diner. But I also figured Maggie wasn't the type to back down. She was too proud, too obsessed with control to retreat over a few online posts. And I was right. Things escalated one morning, when I got a thick envelope from the mail carrier. Inside was a stack of legal documents, printed on crisp white paper with the header, Oak Ridge Estates HOA versus me for public nuisance and community standards violations. It listed a slew of accusations: noise from outdoor speakers, grill smoke causing air pollution, and unlawful gatherings impacting Oak Ridge residents. The final demand was an injunction banning me from future parties, plus a $500 fine for non-compliance. Signed at the bottom was Margaret Reynolds, her scrawled signature dripping with confidence. I read it, tossed the stack on the kitchen table, and laughed. "She's suing me over BBQ," I said to Mia, who stood nearby, half stunned, half worried. "We're not in her HOA on what grounds?" Mia asked. I shrugged. "She probably thinks fancy legal words will scare me, but I'm not fighting alone." I called Jake, not Jake Mitchell from the original script, but Jake Torres, a high school buddy now practicing law in the next town. Jake agreed to take a look, howling over the phone when I filled him in. "This is the dumbest lawsuit I've ever seen," he said. "I've got this. Keep grilling, man." Meanwhile, Maggie doubled down with swagger. Clara called to say she'd tapped HOA funds to hire a big city lawyer, and held an urgent board meeting to justify it. "She says it's to protect property values," Clara reported, "but not everyone's buying it. Gary's still with her, but others are questioning the fund misuse." I nodded over the phone, sensing the tide turning against Maggie. I handed Jake all the evidence: letters, PI pics, fake emails, and waited. The small claims hearing happened weeks later at Pine Hollow's local courthouse. I walked in with Jake, wearing a plain button-up and a relaxed smile, while Maggie strode in wearing an expensive gray suit, briefcase in hand, radiating arrogance. Her lawyer, a short guy with thick glasses, argued my parties were a public nuisance, and hurt Oak Ridge Estates' value, despite my house being outside their jurisdiction. He flashed the PI photos and a list of resident complaints, which I knew were bogus, thanks to Clara's emails. Jake stood up, voice calm but sharp. "Your Honor, my client isn't part of Oak Ridge Estates HOA, so their rules don't apply." Noise from his parties? Deputy Sam Carter checked. "It's under legal limits." Grill smoke? This is Texas BBQ. If that's pollution, then all of Pine Hollow's guilty. The room erupted in laughter. Even the judge cracked a smile. Jake kept going, presenting the fake emails and PI pics. In fact, the plaintiffs invaded my client's privacy and misused HOA funds for personal vendettas. We asked the case be dismissed, and Mrs. Reynolds' conduct reviewed. Maggie went pale as the judge flipped through the evidence. Her lawyer stammered, grasping at general community standards, but the judge cut him off. "Mr. Harper's property isn't in Oak Ridge Estates. The HOA has no jurisdiction here." Case dismissed. Maggie shot up, voice shrill. "This is outrageous. He's destroying our community." The judge eyed her, banged the gavel. "Mrs. Reynolds, I suggest you calm down, unless you want more legal trouble." I left the courthouse grinning, slapping Jake's shoulder. "Thanks, man. I owe you a BBQ," I said. But I didn't stop there. To twist the knife, I threw a Christmas party the next week, lanterns blazing across the yard, speakers blasting jingle bells, and a ragtag Pine Hollow choir, singing outdoors. Maggie stood on her porch, glaring with fury, but powerless. Clara texted. She called an HOA meeting right after the suit, but no one's listening anymore. Even Gary's bailed. Maggie had crashed hard, not just losing the case, but her grip on Oak Ridge Estates. Still, I knew she wasn't done. She was too proud to quit, and I was ready for her next move, with evidence, allies, and all of Pine Hollow behind me. The Christmas party, with its blazing lanterns and ringing carols, proved it. Maggie stood on her porch, eyes spitting fire but helpless. My Reddit post had soared past 10,000 likes, and the Pine Hollow Gazette kept covering HOA Karen with unabashed glee. Clara Evans texted me regular updates. Oak Ridge Estates was in chaos. Gary had flipped, members questioned the HOA funds, and Maggie was scrambling to cling to power. I sat on my porch, sipping a beer and smiling. I didn't need to do more. Maggie was burying herself. The fateful HOA meeting went down on a cold night at the Oak Ridge Estates Community Center. I didn't attend. I wasn't in the HOA and I trusted Clara and the others to finish it. But I got live updates via text from Clara, who was in the room with over 50 residents, an unprecedented turnout, since no one usually bothered with those dull meetings. Maggie walked in, still in her pricey gray suit, hair perfectly styled, but her eyes betrayed strain. She stood at the head of the table, gripping the mic, trying to muster her usual confidence. "We're here to discuss protecting our community from outside threats," she began, voice high-pitched. "I've done everything to safeguard our property values against his vile actions, but no one clapped like they used to." Clara stood first, holding the stack of photocopied emails she'd given me. "Protect the community," Clara said, dripping with sarcasm. "You spent HOA money on a PI to stalk someone outside our jurisdiction. You fake complaints in our names to feed your ego. Here's the proof." She slammed the papers on the table, and murmurs rippled through the room. Maggie blanched, but doubled down. "That's a lie. I'm only doing what's best for Oak Ridge," she shouted, clutching the mic tighter. Henry Brooks, an old man who'd been HOA president before Maggie, stood up from the back of the room. He rarely spoke, but this time his voice carried firm resolve. "I've reviewed the documents my lawyer sent over," Henry said, holding up the stack Jake Torres had forwarded to the HOA after the lawsuit. "You misused funds to hire a lawyer for a baseless case. The court dismissed it, but you nearly got us countersued for privacy invasion. How do you explain that?" The room erupted in whispers, some shouting, "She spent our money, and who gave her permission?" Maggie stammered, trying to stay composed. I acted for the common good. He's the threat. But she was cut off by Dorothy, the elderly woman near Oak Ridge's boundary who'd once enjoyed my Halloween lanterns. "What threat?" Dorothy said, her voice shaky but steady. "I'd rather hear music from his place than get your ridiculous fines for a misplaced trash bin." Laughter broke out, and Maggie slammed the table, face flushed. "You don't get it. We need order." Clara stepped forward, placing her hands on the table and staring Maggie down. "You're not order. You're a control freak. And we're done with it." She turned to Henry. "I motion to vote Margaret Reynolds out as president right now." Cheers filled the room. Not unanimous, but loud enough to drown out the weak protests from folks like Gary, who now sat with his head down. Henry nodded, taking the mic. "Who votes to remove Mrs. Reynolds?" Over 3/4 of the hands shot up, even from those who'd once feared Maggie most. Maggie stood frozen, hands trembling. "You can't do this. I'll sue," she shrieked, but Henry cut in. "You no longer represent the HOA, Maggie. I suggest you leave before this gets worse." The room fell silent, save for Maggie's ragged breathing as she turned and stormed out, her gait, that of someone who'd lost everything. Clara texted me right then. "She's done. She's out." The room clapped as she left. I read the message and laughed hard. I didn't need to be there to feel how sweet this victory was. Maggie had destroyed herself. Not by my hand, but by her own arrogance. I took a sip of beer, gazing at the Christmas lights still glowing in the backyard. But I knew the story wasn't over. Maggie might have lost her title, but her ego wouldn't let her quit that easily. Just days after the meeting, a big moving truck parked in front of Maggie's Oak Ridge Estates house. Clara texted me instantly. "She's packing up." Word as the whole neighborhood pushed her out. They couldn't stand her anymore. I laughed loud, picturing Maggie, once self-crowned queen in her gray suit and icy glare, now boxing up her things in disgrace. A for sale sign popped up in her yard soon after, but rumors spread faster. Maggie wasn't just leaving Pine Hollow, she was leaving Texas. A regular at Rusty's Diner said she'd found another HOA community out of state, hoping to start fresh and reclaim power. I shrugged when I heard. "Good luck to her," I told Mia. "But I bet she won't learn a thing." Karma, it turned out, didn't let Maggie off easy. Weeks later, Clara called, voice buzzing with excitement. "You won't believe this. Maggie moved to an HOA in Georgia, but she ran smack into a president tougher than her." The story went that Maggie tried muscling into the new board, only to get shut down by a no-nonsense woman who took zero flack. She got fined for grass half an inch too tall, warned for parking violations. And when she stirred trouble, the new HOA sent a letter demanding she keep the peace, or get out. Clara laughed over the phone. She sold that house faster than here. Sweet karma. I cracked up, imagining Maggie amid her boxes, hoist by the very game she'd once played on others. While Maggie reaped her own ruin, I savored victory my favorite way, with family, friends, and parties. I turned my backyard into Pine Hollow's regular hangout. Every weekend, I fired up the grill, played country tunes, and opened the gates, from Tommy with his guitar to Sarah with pastries from Rusty's Diner. Liam brought his basketball team to play, and Mia baked extra cookies for the crowd. Townsfolk dubbed it the Harper Hootenanny, and Maggie's harassing letters faded from memory. Instead, they retold the HOA Karen saga as a local legend, a lesson in the cost of hubris. One afternoon, Clara, Dorothy and Frank, the elderly couple who'd once stayed on the sidelines, stopped by with a gift basket, muffins, and an apology letter from Oak Ridge Estate's new board. "We don't want trouble anymore," Dorothy said, smiling. "With Maggie gone, things are so much nicer." Frank nodded, clapping my shoulder. "You did good, kid. I liked your Christmas lights better than her dumb rules." I grinned, thanked them, and invited them to stay for BBQ. Oak Ridge wasn't a threat anymore. They were neighbors, and the divide between us melted away in laughter. To mark the win, I had a big wooden sign made and planted it in my front yard. Bold black letters read, "Free Zone. No HOA, no Maggie." It quickly became a Pine Hollow icon. People stopped to snap pics, kids pointed and giggled, and some called it the Karen Memorial. I sat on my porch, eyeing the sign and sipping beer, satisfaction washing over me. I updated my Reddit post with a photo of it, and a caption, "Final update. HOA Karen's gone. I won. Thanks everyone." Comments flooded in like a torrent. Legend. Schooled her for good. I laughed loud, reading them aloud to Mia and Liam. Maggie never returned to Pine Hollow and I didn't care where she went. For me, life was back to normal. But better. The backyard was now the town's favorite gathering spot. Music and grill smoke replacing harassing letters. I sipped coffee each morning listening to Liam shoot hoops, savoring the peace no one could steal. The war with Maggie Reynolds was history, and Pine Hollow settled back into calm after the storm. I sat on the porch, a steaming mug in hand, watching Liam sink baskets out front while Buddy sprawled in the sun. The Free Zone, no OA, no Maggie sign stood proud, now a town favorite, a cheeky reminder of my triumph. Maggie was gone, her ego in tatters, and Oak Ridge Estates no longer loomed. The peace I'd always cherished, the wind through the oaks, the scent of fresh-cut grass, family laughter was back, richer than ever. I opened my phone, skimming the last comments on my saga. "Anti-Karen legend," one wrote. "Pine Hollow should build him a statue." Another joked. I chuckled, calling Mia out to the porch to read along. "See? I'm Reddit's superhero," I said, winking at her. Mia shook her head, smiling. "Just be Liam's and my superhero. That's enough." I pulled her to sit beside me, contentment flooding through. Life wasn't just back. It was greater, thanks to the parties that bonded Pine Hollow and new friendships with Clara, Dorothy and Frank. As for Maggie, she left a lesson the town couldn't forget. The final rumor came from a Rusty's Diner regular. After flopping in Georgia, Maggie ditched HOA drama, living quietly in some obscure apartment. I didn't need to see her again to know karma had done its job. Power trippers like her, no matter how bold, crumble when faced with unity and justice. Now Pine Hollow retells her tale as a light-hearted warning. Don't mess with folks just trying to live, because community strength always wins. One evening, I threw a New Year's party, not as wild as Halloween or Christmas, but a cozy gathering with close family and friends. Tommy strummed his guitar, Mia brought out cookies, and Liam led his pals around with sparklers. From the backyard, the Free Zone sign's glow flickered, a tiny beacon in the dark. I stood by the grill, raising a beer with Mia and Clara, now a regular. "To peace," I said, and we clinked glasses, laughter ringing in the chilly air. When the party wound down, I sat back on the porch, watching fireworks fade in the sky. I sipped coffee, hearing Liam chatter inside, and smiled. Maggie may have started the trouble, but I'd ended it, not with anger, but with joy and resolve. My life now stood as proof of what I'd always believed. Live, and let live. But if someone crosses the line, stand up and karma will handle the rest. The tale of Ethan Harper and Maggie Reynolds mirrors a real slice of life in the US today. The friction between personal freedom and overbearing community control like HOAs. In America, where HOA-run neighborhoods are common, especially in suburban Texas spots like Pine Hollow, it's not rare to find Maggies who assume authority over even those outside their reach, like when she called the cops on Ethan's BBQ despite him not being in Oak Ridge Estates. It's a familiar reality when petty power gets wielded to enforce personal whims, from noise disputes to absurd rules about grass height or house paint, issues that flood social media like Reddit with similar sagas. Ethan's lesson isn't just patience, like ignoring those early warning letters, but how he used unity and modern tools to fight back. Posting on Reddit turned his story into a public pressure cooker for Maggie, showcasing social media's power in today's America to expose wrongs. Support from Clara and Oak Ridge residents proved a community can topple overreach when it stands together, like when they ousted Maggie at the HOA meeting. The practical takeaway: when facing a bully like her, Don't just take it. Gather proof like Ethan's security cams. Find allies like Clara, and amplify your collective voice via social media or town meetings to protect your rights. Karma, as it chased Maggie out of Pine Hollow, comes when you persist, and don't let someone's arrogance steal your peace. Don't forget to hit subscribe to catch more funny tales and hard-earned lessons like Ethan's clash with HOA Karen. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with more Pine Hollow drama.